Kick her on. Good evening, everybody. Certainly want to welcome you to the Kentucky Woodland Owners monthly meeting. It seems to be a trend going on. I want to thank Steve Perry, who's down there in Texas. He has somehow single-handedly gotten these programs together for the past two, two, uh, 2 months, and we certainly appreciate that. His intent is to keep KWA membership together by providing them the opportunity of short little programs like the one we're going to be having this evening, different topics each time. So at this particular time, he'll probably tell you, he might mention to you that there's going to be another one on June the 2nd, and then we'll try to do some more. I will mention to you that our annual meeting, KWA's annual meeting for membership, is going to be in late September. So that's come to you already, and it will be coming to you more. But again, I want to thank Steve for getting this program put together. I want to thank Billy and the university also for providing the platform to have this program. You've helped us out tremendously throughout this entire past year, and we appreciate all that you've done. I appreciate also the people that are here on the viewing this program tonight. We put these together for people like yourselves. So spread the word. Let it be known that there's more coming, and just keep with us. I want to ask you when we get started here in just a second to mute your mics. I think everybody has them muted right now, but that background noise can be found real easily, especially if the phone rings right next door to you here. So with that, what I'd like to do, Steve, did you have anything that you wanted to say about future programming or such?
Just the one in June is going to be on carbon credits with the company Sylvia Terra. And we're going to see what they're offering. They're doing a 1-year contract as opposed to some of those longer ones.
Yeah.
Don't think they're paying quite as much, but they seem to think it's a really good deal. It's at no cost to the landowner, so
I don't.
it's worth looking at.
So be looking forward to that information coming to you.
Yeah.
About the
That's
June
pretty
2nd
much what I did.
program.
We'll be getting it out next week again.
Okay, very good. Okay, what I'd like to do then is introduce our program this evening. Dr. Ellen Crocker, there at the University of Kentucky in the Department of Forestry and Natural Resources. Steve has been promising this and has had little spurts of it for the past year, talking about healthy woods, the app for healthy woods. So I would like to introduce Dr. Ellen Crocker and let her take over. And please provide us with as much information as you can, and we'll help you in any way we can in the future to spread the word.
Thank you so much, and thanks for inviting me on tonight. I always appreciate the opportunity to talk with you all, and I'm looking forward to the meeting in September in person, right? So that'll be a nice change of pace. And tonight, I was thinking we could try something different over Zoom, but I'm looking out and I'm seeing how many of you all are joining. It looks like everybody's joining from their phone or an iPad or something like that. Is that correct? Okay, well, I'll show you a tool over Zoom. We won't use it today because it's a little tricky, in my opinion, if you're using it over the phone, but I can just show you what I've done with it in the past. And so my goal for today is introduce you to this new app, Healthy Woods, and you can download it right now for your Android or iPhone smartphone. And our whole goal is that it'll be a really helpful introduction for woodland owners, particularly those who are new woodland owners or maybe kind of new to thinking about their woods. So maybe a good communication tool for you all as you're talking to other woodland owners about, the health of their woodlands, forest health, and starting to think about that. Our whole goal with it is to make it a really quick and easy walkthrough of kind of you're walking around, what do you see, what does that mean? And obviously it can't do everything, and it's not going to tell you everything about your woodland, but a really good starting place. And then connections to resources that people can reach out to in the future for more information. So let me go ahead and share this. So today I'll be talking about the Healthy Woods app, and I have a couple other co-presenters today, but really I just have some videos from them that I might share if we have time. And that's Dave Apsley and Kathy Smith, both from Ohio State University. So we're going to skip this. I'm just going to ask you some questions in the chat instead of over Mentimeter, which is kind of like an online polling service. But the first question I've got for you all are kind of just based on your experience to get us started. What are your favorite smartphone apps for woodland owners? What are the ones that you use the most or you recommend to people? And feel free to put them in the chat. Mapping, yeah, Doug, what kind of mapping do you like to do? Do you like to just kind of use Google Maps and Google Earth? You're muted.
Let me get my mute off here. There's a wide variety of uses and ones that I use, but and the thing about the mapping apps, and that's in quotes, there's a lot of variety of natural resources that you can actually look at when you're looking at those different types of mapping apps. They may be exclusive for one particular thing, or they may overlap. But to me, I certainly enjoy mapping a great deal.
Right, yeah. Plant ID, yes. There's a lot of good apps out there for ID. Does anyone have some favorites? They use iNaturalist, definitely, and Google Maps. I see Jimmy saying iNaturalist. Jimmy, what do you use iNaturalist for?
Well, I have used it to identify plants, but I like to identify insects with iNaturalist. I actually was traveling this past year and stopped at a rest area, and I snapped a bee that was there that I had never seen before. And one of the well, he's really authority on native bees. A guy named John Asher actually responded and identified the insect for me. So,
Nice.
you know, I like to use it for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that about it. And I love that, like, you don't have to have different apps. It's all in one app, you know, like your plants and your insects and other things. And I see somebody is using the Mentimeter. So if you want to, these screens that I have where I'm asking questions, you can, you know, unmute yourself or put it in the chat, but you can also go to this website and type in this code, and then you can enter it as we're going along. And I'll show you what some others have entered for that. But I love iNaturalist, and Seek is really nice. Seek is kind of the version of iNaturalist that does not have any of the social component. So I think it's really useful, especially with kids. And it was designed kind of for that youth audience in mind, where they want to be able to identify things, but not necessarily, you know, have a profile and be contacted by strangers.
I also like Cornell's bird app, the Merlin bird app. That's a really good bird identification app.
I love that one too. I just got into birding this year and I've been using it a lot.
Yeah. Well, coming to Texas, there's a whole different group down here, so it's been fun.
How about you, Doug? You had one other one you wanted to add? I saw you unmute yourself.
Say Cornell's bird is very good, very good.
Oh yeah, and someone put V-Tree. I really like that one too. So we mentioned iNaturalist for plant identification. Virginia Tech has an app called V-Tree that's really a dichotomous key. So it's a great dichotomous key, but if you've ever used a dichotomous key, it's a little bit more work than just taking a picture of something and it'll automatically identify it for you. It won't do that, but it's a lot kind of more information and a really helpful tool, because sometimes you'll get on iNaturalist and you're like, well, it's definitely not that, but I don't know what it is. And I find the Virginia Tech app to be really great as well. Any others that people want to share? Well, here, I'll put up the next screen, which takes us to what the Ohio group of foresters, I talked at their professional meeting about a month ago, and here are all the apps that they identified as their favorite apps for woodland owners. And you can see some that we just talked about, iNaturalist and V-Tree, as well as a lot of different, maybe apps focused on invasive species, or Merlin. We talked about that one. The bird ID. Avenza Maps is a really nice kind of other type of mapping app. So, a whole range of different things. And I think, what this tells me and what our conversation, that we just had about apps tells me that there's a lot of apps out there. There are a lot of apps out there that are really useful for woodland owners. And so as we go forward and thinking about, well, why would we develop another app? Aren't there plenty of apps out there? Hopefully I can walk you through with Healthy Woods what we think that Healthy Woods offers kind of to add to what these other apps already provide. And we'll kind of build that toolbox for woodland owners. So I think woodland health is one of those topics that everyone wants a really healthy woodland, and it's, in everyone's plans. And if you ask woodland owners, what are their goals and interests, a lot of people will identify health. But that's kind of easy conceptually, but it's really hard to nail down, like, what does that actually mean? Like, what are you aiming for when you're shooting for health? And so kind of one of the things that I think can be helpful is thinking about what are the characteristics of healthy woodlands. So when you all think about healthy woodlands, what are some things that come to mind for you? Or maybe when you're talking to a new woodland owner, what are the things that you try to reinforce to them, as these ambassadors, and, trying to share that? Are there any things that you think of? And feel free to enter them on Menti or just put them in the chat or unmute yourself. Like things that you like to share with people about indicators of health and like good things to shoot for.
Diversity.
Definitely. Yeah. Diversity. And what kind of diversity, Doug? All of the kinds?
Yeah, species-wise.
Species-wise. Maybe structure too, like age-wise. Lack of invasives. Yeah, definitely. And both those are really hard, diversity and like lack of invasives, because in order to get there, you kind of have to know something about your plant ID and your tree ID to get there. But there are a lot, but I think a lot of it will come down to that. And if you want to see, this is what our foresters group said. And look, Doug, I didn't show him these slides on the front end, right? Diversity, native plants, species diversity, wildlife diversity, biodiversity, lack of invasives. See, we're thinking alike here. Quality trees, big trees, nice trees, different things having to do with both the trees and the diversity that's there.
I think I'm going to jump in here quickly, and that is, this is one of the things that has helped the Appalachian Mountains, and that's having this diversity of species. When you get into those monocultures, when something gets started, it's hard to slow down if you have one specific dominating species, whatever it is.
I think that's a really good point. And I think it's something for us to consider definitely in our state, because we are really far on the diversity, like what's natural in our woodlands, right? We have really diverse woodlands. We don't just have, pines and lines, and we don't just have, 5 species like they might kind of further up north in more the boreal setting. We have 120 different native tree species, and you'll find many, many different species. And I think that in some ways that's more challenging because, there's this complexity, this diversity that's present. You're not just thinking about one species in uniformity, but from a forest health perspective, it is an incredible buffer against issues as they come in. If you even think about emerald ash borer, emerald ash borer, the invasive beetle that wiped out our ash trees and is currently still wiping them out, it had a big impact, right? And ash was only 4% of the trees across the state. And on some properties it was much higher than that, of course. But if you think about things like, wow, what if ash had been 50% of our trees like it was in other states? Like that would have been a much bigger deal than it was for us. And I think that that's one of the ways that diversity really helps us, is that if something new comes in and wipes things out, at least we have this great diversity of other species that are there. And another way that diversity helps is that as things change, if we're getting more rain, or we're getting, hotter weather, or late spring freezes, or, you name it, we've got a diversity of different species that could fill those niches, versus in other areas where they're just kind of out of luck, if the climate changes in a way that doesn't support the trees that are there, they're really having to think hard. And I think that's useful for us as well, but we automatically have this huge buffer of diversity present that I think will help us into the future. So diversity, here's some indicators of healthy woods. Well, then if we wanted to do the opposite, we could do characteristics of unhealthy woodlands, which is, the things that I think about a lot in the forest health zone. But, a lot of those are going to be the inverse of what we just talked about, right? If diversity is good, then lack of diversity is bad, at least in our setting. And it's a little more complicated than that, right? Because you do have plantations that have very low diversity, and that's the goal. And that's not a bad scenario. That uniformity is what they strive for. But if we're talking about naturally regenerating high quality hardwoods, it's a different ballgame. But some of the things that came up before, invasive species, monoculture, lack of diversity, as well as a lot of other things like disease, canopy dieback, poor quality trees, compaction, mortality, lack of regeneration. Anything else that people kind of real red flags for you when it comes to health? I think one of the hardest things is that it can depend. It depends, right? And it depends on the situation. So what is healthy? What does healthy look like is going to vary if you're talking to somebody who had a stand that was harvested last year versus someone who has a stand that has not been harvested in a long time. That, like, what is healthy in those two different situations would look radically different, right? And so it's hard to kind of put one single definition on that. And the same, goes for a lot of these other metrics, but invasive species clearly causing some issues. Any other kind of thoughts or comments on that? All right, well then I have one more question for you. And this is your time to let me know, what do you wish more woodland owners understood better about the health of their woods? So what have you learned that you wish you could share with others, right? Everything.
Well,
this is what it's all about.
I wish they all understood the importance of the health of their woods and how it's economically good for them to maintain them healthy.
Yeah.
The thing is, I think a large number of the woodland owners don't understand what they're looking at. As long as they see green, they feel comfortable. And that green could be, kudzu, and they may, in many cases, not even know what that is. Mm. So I think it's very important for woodland owners to have a splattering of education on all aspects. But I think it's very difficult for someone that doesn't understand the concepts of forest management, even at the basic level, what they are looking at. As long as it's green, it's good.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I hear that a lot with winter creeper and honeysuckle and other things. And that it was like, oh, I thought it was good because it was so green. It's like, oh.
Yeah, and honeysuckle comes in nice early in the spring. So, oh boy, beautiful green and early in the spring.
Yep. And I see some comments from Billy about objectives playing a role. People have to keep an eye on their woods, right? That's a common misconception, is that you don't like you can do nothing and things will work out great, right? That no management is the best management. And it's like, oh, Yeah, there's some things that are going to come in and throw a wrench no matter what you want. And invasives are a really good example of that. Versus, there are some other things that it really depends on your goals. Are you trying to maximize timber? Are you just looking for recreation and legacy? There are folks willing to help them. So there are great resources around. And I think it can be overwhelming for people when they first get started and thinking about it, like, where do I go? And how can I tackle this bush honeysuckle problem by myself? Or, insert your invasive species there. The other,
I'm afraid too many woodland owners don't really have a goal, and that's, as Doug said, if it's green, it's healthy, and the fact that a third of the trees may be hollow is not their concern.
how they fit into surrounding properties. Karen, do you want to talk a little bit more about that and what you're thinking? Or anyone else have anything else that they're thinking of? Maybe kind of like who your neighbors are and how it fits in with them.
Ellen, it made me think too about if your neighbors have invasive issues and how that puts pressure on your own property and that as well.
That's a really good point. And that, yeah, you can do everything you can do all of the things for your invasive species, but if your neighbors aren't doing anything, you'll be back to square one in no time.
The other thing I guess I would say is if, it takes time, you have to be persistent if you're dealing with some of these invasives or other threats too. You gotta have a little patience and be willing to come back multiple times.
Yeah, trees live life on a long time scale, don't they? They don't necessarily follow ours, which is frustrating. And so these are the responses of the Ohio Foresters group. And so you can see a lot of what we've talked about. Not all trees are good. Not all plants are good. Some of the, and of course, this is the foresters, but some of the same thing that Billy mentioned of like, who are the resources available to help you? Loggers aren't, loggers and foresters being different and the different professions that are out there. So, a lot of these are things that require a lot of, we mentioned trees need time. A lot of these require a lot of time, a lot of study. And you gain with experience. But we definitely tried to connect up some of these missing pieces in the Healthy Woods app, and I'll walk you through some of how we did that. So the Healthy Woods app is a tool that we designed specifically for woodland owners. The goal being to help them learn about health issues, help them identify potential problems, and to help them connect to professionals for next steps in their management. So to use the app, you get it on your phone, and then you find, we tell people to find a stand, an area representative of some part of their woodland. They can complete this once, they can complete it many times for different stands or at different time points. And this is an educational tool. It's not going to give you detailed prescriptions for exactly what to do next, but it does result in a report, a PDF report that you can save for your own records to use. You can share, and it comes with some kind of customized, personalized feedback based on what people entered for their woods and what they found. So kind of just to show you of what that would look like. If you open up the app, you can, and like do this, it kind of gives you different options. You can take a new assessment. You can kind of see your past assessments, what you've done in the past for different stands. And then it's got this area here for different resources. And look, Woodland Owners Associations, right? Yeah, that's a really important one that they might not even realize that there are other woodland owners in their state that they could be reaching out to and connecting to get more information, but also, Kentucky Division of Forestry, Consulting Foresters, NRCS, Fish and Wildlife, depending on where they're located. and just different information. We do by state too. So for every state, they've got a list of resources that are available to them. But let's say they click on new assessment. First thing it asks them is what type of stand do they have? Do they have an aging harvest, a recent harvest, sapling or pole timber or saw timber? And then we explain what each of that is to kind of help them along if they haven't heard that terminology before. Then we'll ask them about recent major storm events, keeping in mind that if they have recently had a storm event, maybe now is not the time to go exploring their woods and they should call a professional instead. Putting that on their horizon. What are their primary objectives? We talked about, the lack of objectives. What do they want to be doing with their woods? And then we start to ask them a series of questions about their woodlands. So these are customized based on whether they picked aging harvest or fresh harvest or saw timber. They'll get different questions as far as what are the most important health issues for each of those areas. And this was a really fun project to work on because we wanted something that would work for the entire Eastern United States in the upland hardwood context. So I invited a bunch of forestry extension specialists and forest health specialists from, let's see, we had New York, Ohio, Maryland, South Carolina, Georgia, and Kentucky, all at a meeting just before COVID happened. And we sat down for 2 days and we thought about what do woodland owners really need to know about the health of the woods. It's not going to overwhelm them with terminology they don't know and is not going to be impossible for them to answer, but that they could walk around in their woods, whether they're in New York or down in Georgia, and it would give them something meaningful. So, we asked them about the canopies, what do they look like? What are examples of canopy gaps versus nice full closed canopies in the summer and in the winter? Select one of those and let us know, and then take a picture of that. If you have the condition of the canopy, and that'll go right into the report that then they can share with others. So with that, I want to kind of take you over to a quick video with this app. So let me share that. Do we have any questions just yet? All right, hopefully you can see and hear this. So this is going to be Kathy Smith at the Ohio State University walking through using
Hi, my name is Kathy Smith. I'm the Extension Program Director for Forestry in the School of Environment and Natural Resources at The Ohio State University. Today, we're going to utilize the Healthy Woods app and take a look at the Smith Farm. The farm contains approximately 80 acres of woodlands, and in the early 2000s, when we were assessing for emerald ash borer, realized that at least one large section of the property was 60% ash, making management decisions a little more difficult. As you can see from the photo, here in the bottomland area adjacent to the creek, almost every large-sized tree is ash, or was ash at this point in time. But it was an overwhelming thought process when you stood here and looked at all of the ash trees that emerald ash borer could impact. Utilizing the Healthy Woods app, we took a look at the property to see what the health condition was of the woodland. From here on out, we're going to address some of those questions, and you can see the answers we gave, and then we'll talk about the output. One of the questions that's asked is, have you had a harvest? And so in 2017, we had a fairly large harvest where we were trying to deal with the dead and dying ash trees that were so numerous throughout the woodland. 2 years later, you can see some of the young vegetation coming in from the canopy gaps that were created from that 2017 harvest. Another question in the app is, did you recently experience a major weather event? Answering it last year, I said no, but this year we would have had to say yes, as last week's heavy winds took down more of the standing dead ash that were not removed in the 2017 harvest. The app also asks what your primary objectives are for the property. One of ours is definitely wildlife, as we have a nice variety across the property. An example of some of that variety includes the pileatids that we have in and amongst the forest canopy. One of our other woodland objectives is timber. Timber is that tool in the toolbox that allows us to manage for wildlife, for recreation, and any other objectives we may have for the property. One of the questions in the app is also, do you have any exposed or disturbed soil? Here's a picture from right after the harvest, that following fall. And you can see that there's a good amount of vegetation on the forest floor. So really not an issue for exposed or even really disturbed soil at that point. Another question in the app is, do you have a significant amount of ground cover? My answer for that would be in places. Kind of depends on, it's thicker in some spots and thinner in others, but there's definitely a variety, including invasive species. As you can see here, this is one of the huge canopy gaps after we harvested ash, and there's a real mix of vegetation on the forest floor between ferns and brambles and invasive species. Unfortunately, garlic mustard is probably a dominant forest floor species at this point and seems hard to keep up with. So it's definitely one of those areas that we need to work on. Another ground cover I have in some sections of the woods is poison ivy. It's a carpet of poison ivy in some spots. Another question in the app was, do you have tree species left after the harvest? And then you're asked to provide info on what's there. So elm is definitely one of ours. We have both red and white elm or American elm. We also have a couple of species of maple between red and sugar, depending on where you are, closer to the creek, up on higher ground, but both of them are there in fairly large quantities. Scattered throughout the woods are a few red oak and quite a few American beech. Those will have to be watched to make certain that we don't end up seeing beech leaf disease on them because they do make up in some sections a fairly high proportion of the trees on the site. The app also asks about seedling sapling layers. What do you see coming up in that understory on the forest floor? We have seedlings of cherry, ash, of course, maple, elm, and beech, with a few others scattered in. So we do have quite a variety, at least at this point in time. So inputting all of that info, plus a few other questions that were asked and answered, our woods got a yellow rating from the app. And you might question why. So the yellow rating really is just because some of the things we listed suggest that there may be a current problem or a potential one in the future. And if it's a potential one or even a current one, you may think about looking at getting some professional help to try to deal with those issues before they get out of control. So the Healthy Woods app rated us yellow, which is sort of where I figured the farm would fall, knowing that we have so many dead and dying ash trees in the woods and our invasive species issues that we have. All of it needs to be dealt with. Some of it needs to be dealt with right now. And I think that for the future for this woods it's going to be a long-term management issue.
Great. So hopefully that gave you a little walkthrough of using the app. And thanks to Kathy Smith for putting that together. And I also just wanted to say that, let's see if I stop this share. If you go to the Healthy Woods app YouTube page, you'll be able to find that video and others. So we already have a couple from Ohio, but our hope is to do these for Kentucky and other states as well.
Forest Health Extension at the University of Kentucky and on the Healthy Woods app team.
Go ahead and stop that share. It looks like it's gone ahead. So I just kind of wanted to show you some of that and that's available as well. And here I'm going to quickly show you the app itself. Let me share this, or not the app, the website for this. So here's the Healthy Woods website. Hopefully you can see that. And Kathy mentioned, the report that she had and what that was like. So let me just show you what she was talking about with that. So you get a sense of what do woodland owners get when they use Healthy Woods. So let me just search for her report, and you can see that this is what people would get. And you can email this to people. I can contact her about it, which is kind of nice. Like I could reach out to her, say, oh, I see that you completed this. Did you want to talk to somebody about your woods? But then she would be able to download this as a PDF or directly email it to people for next steps. So it gives her a yellow rating, because of those invasives and lots of canopy gaps. And then for each of those things, it provides a little synthesis here of, why was it yellow? What about it was a potential problem that she should look at in the future? And then, a little bit of response to each of her questions and why it could be potentially concerning. So you can see that garlic mustard that she talked about. This is kind of what the canopy looks like in her woods. Some of the dominant ground level vegetation, that garlic mustard she mentioned. So that's kind of the way that would work. And with that, I kind of just wanted to see what you all think, and if you have any questions about Healthy Woods, or maybe using that, things that it would be helpful for you, or you think it would be helpful for other woodland owners if it did.
I think it's very inclusive. I think that, the questions you ask and the results that it provides, I think is a very good introduction for any landowner to get a handle on. I especially like the colors. I don't know, is it red, green, yellow? Is that what it comes down to?
It is. It's just red. We thought about having it be a very complicated quantitative system, and then we're like, you know what? We're just not that good. It's just going to be red, green, or yellow. That's it.
Again, my concern is the landowners and what they understand about their woodlands, meaning, can they identify anything looking up through those trees? I know that you gave some good illustrations, but I think this is our objective in the future, is to try to pull in as many of these landowners as we can and say, here's some of the things that you need to be looking at. And that might be a thing to do, is to make a presentation based upon the app, what are the specifics that they ask you and how to identify those. The thing that keeps running through my mind as of recent, and that is, I think we're going to get more and more, the interested people that are going to be coming to us are going to be those people that own smaller acreages. And I think that we need to be prepared for that. I think the majority of us in KWA right now are those people that, have a sizable, meaning 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 acres or more. And, have been involved in it and understand it fairly well. I think our concern is, and I think very good reasoning is that there's a lot of people that have an interest. The ones that will come to us that say, I'm interested, are going to have small acreages.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's challenged because a lot of the more traditional resources that you might refer to people to aren't, it's not going to be the same ones. Mm-hmm. And so, they are welcome to download this app and use it.
That's what I was going to say, Ellen. I think this can open up to a broader audience than maybe we've engaged with. And I'm really excited to see, when I start getting calls from people that have downloaded the Healthy Woods app and they're reaching out to their extension folks. So, but anyway, thank you for all your work putting this together with the team. I know it's a big team effort, but I really think this is a good tool that will kind of encourage and get people active and looking at their woods more so. So thank you all very much.
I really look forward to doing this in the field at the annual meeting, where we can actually get out and play with it some. So
yeah, definitely. And
let people understand how actually effective this is and how good it is. I've had well, before I moved to Texas, and I don't have my woods handy anymore, but I had a lot of fun playing with it until then.
Oh,
so.
good. Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I hope, is that if you talk to somebody, like, if you talk to somebody new who's interested in it, it's like, oh, we'll try this out, and like get your report and share it with somebody. I think that I hope that it'll be a good kind of first point of contact. Because it's gonna be a little intimidating to be like, oh, you gotta come to this short course. Although I don't think the short courses are that intimidating, but you know what I mean? Like, that's once a year, and it might not be convenient to them. And this is a really quick and easy way for them to get looped into some really good resources, because doing this once isn't going to do anything. It's all about, does this set the stage for, their thinking about things going forward, that could have a big impact.
I think it will help them learn a lot about their woods. I also think it will help them determine what type of professional help they need. The division versus a consultant, a wildlife biologist versus the forester, whatever. But I think it'd be really helpful.
Yeah, we tried to provide a brief summary of each of those. What is a, wildlife biologist? What is a consulting forester? Just like a couple sentences to summarize that, because I know it's a lot for folks. And then for all of the states that we're partnering with here, I can show you all this. We've got, and this will be easy for us to update as it changes, for Kentucky, and it looks nicer in the app, I promise. For Kentucky, who they might want to reach out to, who are some good resources, next steps there. And so we do have, all of these different videos that are available, how to use it, how to share your report, what to do next steps. We're hoping to get more walkthroughs. So if anybody wants to volunteer to have me come out and videotape you walking through your woods with the app, I would love to. And then I also wanted to pull this up in case you haven't seen it before, the Kentucky Forest Health YouTube page. We've got a lot of videos that might be of interest to folks, including our entire 2021 Kentucky Forest Health Conference. Now, I know some of you attended. I believe Ed did, and Doug did, and I'm not sure who else attended. It was over Zoom this year, of course, but we had almost 500 people attend this webinar conference, and we had some great presentations, and you can catch up on all of those on the YouTube page, as well as some kind of other webinars that I've done in the past, and other kind of programs that we've got going on. So we'll add more to that over time as well.
There is an abundance of information. It just needs to be synthesized for people to, and instead of taking a whole great big huge glass full of this information, we need to spoon feed it to people to build up their confidence.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Jimmy, you also came to the Forest Health Conference. Yeah, and so I think next year we're gonna try to do that in person. So this is our second year. This was our second year of doing the conference. The first year we had at the stadium, the football stadium, and it was great. And then the second year we had it online, and it was also great. So next year, not as good as the stadium, Doug. Is that what I'm hearing? The food was not good. The aisle,
No,
the potato bar.
It was just that it wasn't face to face, and I truly enjoy the face to face presentations where you can do a better follow up. But I'm amazed at what Zoom can get through to us. It's been a good platform for the past year for us. But no, I mean, the program was good. It was just that you lack that connectivity.
I agree. And so I think next year, and we haven't met, our Kentucky Forest Health Task Force needs to meet again soon to kind of make a plan for that. But I think what we'd like to do for this next year is to have an in-person meeting, but also have a Zoom kind of summary of all the talks that are going, like shorter versions of each of those. That way people could catch it either way. So yeah. Hope we'll be doing the in-person thing in no time, right? So if there are no other questions on Healthy Woods or thoughts, Steve asked me to talk a little bit about ash and the situation with kind of ash right now. And I figured I would just kind of briefly talk about, what's going on with that. The emerald ash borer continues to move through the state. And let me just pull up a map of where it currently is, because it's made some inroads into Western Kentucky that I wanted to point out. Looks like it did not get updated. I'll pull that up in just a minute. But kind of the situation is that green and white ash are very, very susceptible to this insect, and that they're very attracted to the insect, and then they don't have good ways to defend themselves once the larvae are in there. So the green and white ash are pretty much 100% of them are either already dead or are going to be dead in the near future. Whereas blue ash is a bit more resistant to this. And the reason for that is that a couple different reasons. Actually, blue ash is less attractive to the female beetles, but it also has more defenses against those larvae in their development in the tree. So the blue ash is a little bit of a different situation, that you'll still see blue ash around even when emerald ash borer have been there for a while. They might have some damage from the beetle, but less impacted than the white and green ash, which is just being decimated. However, emerald ash borer will likely continue to be a problem in the future. So I think one of the questions was, well, once it moves in, isn't that population then just going to crash and it won't be a problem anymore? And I think one of the challenges with that is that we have a ton of ash regeneration. So there's a lot of ash growing in the woods right now. It is just all the seeds of those trees that had died. Right when trees are very stressed and they're dying, they put out a huge flush of seeds. So we've got a lot of ash that's coming up, and it doesn't have to be too big before it's killed by the emerald ash borer. It can be quite small. I think that's going to continue to feed that emerald ash borer population for some time. I don't think it's ever going to get as big as it was at first when we had lots and lots of beetles, but the emerald ash borer will continue to be present in our systems for the foreseeable future, because I think that's going to continue to happen. So you have a lot of small green and white ash region right now in woods, and a lot of people will send me emails asking me, like, does this mean that they're resistant and that these ash are, should I let those continue to grow because they could replace the other ash? And I would say no, because they're just the seeds of a parent ash that had died. So they're probably just as susceptible. Now, how much do you need to manage them? Probably not really. They're going to die once they get, not too big. So as long as you have other species that are in there that are growing well, they will sort themselves out in the near future. Once the emerald ash borer gets to them. But that's not regeneration you're going to count on growing into the future. So going forward, there is a hunt for ash trees, white and green ash, that's still alive in areas where all of the other ash trees have died. And that is because in some of our states further north, where emerald ash borer has been there longer, they have found a very, very small number, like a handful in these entire states, of trees that are still alive. And they might have some damage from emerald ash borer, but they weren't necessarily killed, and they clearly are more resistant than others. And the Northern Research Station, in a project led by Jennifer Cook, there is looking into, like, are they actually resistant or are they just lucky? And she's found that yes, there are some that will actually inhibit the growth of those larvae in the tree. Maybe they wall them off, or maybe they actually kill them, but they can actually defend themselves better than most of our Native American white and green ash. And most of our work is with green ash, which, in our area, I think white ash is a little bit more significant, but still it's really exciting. It's really exciting to think about that just naturally out there, there could be enough. And she's also found that there's a lot of variation in resistance. So it's not like they're all at the same level. There's a whole bunch of variation, kind of how they're defending themselves and what that looks like. So in Asia, where the emerald ash borer is native, you know, it doesn't kill those healthy trees in the same way it does here. It might cause some branch dieback, and that's because those trees can defend themselves better against it. And so the idea being, maybe we can find some of that here as well, and we can get that back out on the landscape. So I think the work that they're doing is really exciting and very promising for the future, and because they are finding some, but it's going to be a long road between now and then. You know, it's not going to automatically get back out in the woods. It'll probably be most able to get it out first in the landscape setting, just because, you know, those are places where you could readily plant those trees and they'd take off. But I do think we're a lot closer to that than we have been with other trees where this has happened, like chestnut, which I think, you know, now we're pretty close to chestnut, which is super exciting with that transgenic chestnut. But it took a long time to get there. And that's a transgenic chestnut versus the Forest Service programs that are looking for that natural resistance. Not that people aren't also, you know, approaching other breeding opportunities with ash. So are there ways that we could make a transgenic ash that would be resistant? You know, are there other ways that you could do that? So that's also happening. There's work looking at biological controls of emerald ash borer, parasitoid beetles. There is research looking at kind of different treatment approaches. So previously there are some insecticides that are really the most commonly used things if you want to protect individual trees from emerald ash borer. But there's interest in kind of what are some alternatives to those. Even now, you don't have to apply those with the same frequency that you used to have to apply them, because our emerald ash borer beetle populations are lower. So where they used to say every 2 years, now you could get by with every 3 years for those kinds of insecticide treatments. And I think that that will continue to increase, and that you probably have more time between each one of those treatments as those beetle populations decrease.
Ellen, let me ask,
yeah.
if you were to find a healthy ash tree, who do you report it to?
Yeah, so you can report it to me, but you can also report it on the Tree Snap app. So if you download the Tree Snap app and report it there, we actually just contacted everyone who'd submitted ash trees. Did anyone get an email from Megan Bueland, my technician, in the past few weeks? So she emailed everyone in Kentucky who listed an ash tree, and she tried to contact everyone to say, like, oh, thanks for submitting that. Like, depending on where it was and what the tree looked like, really that program, they're interested in large ash trees that were not planted, you know, they're naturally occurring, that have never been treated, that are kind of in that forest setting. So if it was one of those, it was like, please, like, go back and get us some seed. The KDF orchard would like to, and the KDF nursery would like to maybe add those to what they're doing. So we've been working with Kentucky Division of Forestry, both their forest health folks and then the nursery, to try to plant seeds of those remaining trees. And we don't really have the same kind of robust breeding program that the Forest Service has, but it's building on what they found, in that there is some of that resistance out there, especially, and these are areas where over 95% of the ash trees have been dead for at least two years. And so that's kind of what they're looking for. And if you've got those, let us know. That'd be great. You can download the Tree Snap app, and we'll check in regularly to see what people are observing. Any other questions, comments, other random forest health questions, burning forest health questions you have?
You could
Why does my list of things that I need to be looking out for getting longer.
Well, I'll tell you an interesting one. Here, if you have like 5 minutes, I'll tell you an interesting one that we have got to watch for. And I don't know the answer to this, but I mentioned, and Kathy mentioned garlic mustard, right? And how many of you have garlic mustard in your woods? Everybody probably.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, who doesn't? It's all over the place. It's an invasive plant native to Europe and Asia, common invasive herbaceous plant. So it's been here for a long time, and theoretically invasive, they say theoretically because, who knows, invasive plants should become less and less damaging the longer that they've been here and the longer that our native pathogens and herbivores have had with them to kind of accumulate and acquire new checks on their success. So there's some brand new research out of Cornell University, Baron de Blasi and others that was showing that over time, the longer that garlic mustard had been established, it started doing worse and worse. And it's been there for a long time because it's been, around since probably the late 1800s, and they were tracking it over about 30 years. So it was still there, and it was still all over, but they were finding it to be, less problematic in some of their sites. Does that apply here? I have no idea. Obviously I advise if you've got a successful management strategy that you keep that up. But to me, it's very encouraging because that's kind of what we hope with some of these invasives is that over time, we buy some time for our native species and communities to get used to them and to kind of keep them in check, or maybe they'll learn to coexist a little bit better. Because the goal isn't not to have like any non-native species. We're never going to get there. The goal is to still have vigorous, vibrant native species. So
that seems like exciting news that there might be some hope from all of this effort that we can actually maybe help out and get a handle on things. So no, that's very encouraging.
It's nice for her to have encouraging news instead of that long list of things I have to look out for.
There's a lot of encouraging news. And I do think something Doug said early on, or I think it was Doug, diversity. Diversity is key for forest health. And we are fortunate in Kentucky in that we have really high diversity. So as long as we've got that diversity, we will be buffered from a lot of different potential threats that are out there, whatever they might be. So I think that's, in a lot of ways, it's all doom and gloom when we talk forest health, right? But it's not. Like, we have fantastic forests, and relative to other parts of the world, we have really healthy forests. And so I think that's a strength that we can build on into the future.
Good. Okay, well, thank you very much, Ellen. I don't want to keep you, and I don't want to keep the rest of the audience any longer than what we first anticipated. But thank you so much for bringing us up to date. There's just so, like you say, there's so much to talk about, and I think you've provided a lot of opportunity. And like Steve said, we'll have another go round with you, hands-on, hopefully in September. So as we close here, I'll simply re-mention what Steve said. June the 2nd, there'll be more information coming out about it. But on June the 2nd, we're going to have another program on the carbon credit, one of the major stakeholders in that particular program. So on June the 2nd, materials will be coming to you. And then in late September, we're going to have our annual meeting. And Billy, I'll let you kind of close here. Could you tell us those 3 dates for the short course this summer?
Sure, and we might work this in as an update, Steve. It may be the July one as well, but we've been planning for the Kentucky Woodland Owner Short Course, and we're going to do a hybrid approach this year. And it's going to start off on July 27th with a series of webinars, and those are going to be on July 27th, July 29th, August 3rd, and August 5th. Those will be in the evening. And then we're going to have 3 actual field sessions. We're going to meet you all in person, and we're going to go over some stuff out in the field, some of the stuff we talk about online, and maybe some of the stuff you've heard in other places. So those are going to take place on August 14th at the UK Princeton Research Center in Caldwell County. August 21st at UK's Robinson Forest in Breathitt County, and August 28th at Bernheim Arboretum and Research Forest in Bullitt County. So we're looking forward to each of those. We will have registration and additional information available very soon.
Good.
Okay, great. Again, thank you all for being with us. I hope that you've learned a lot, and whatever other things you need to learn, just contact Ellen and she will bring you up to date on everything.
Yeah.
But again, it's been wonderful having you all with us. And the best of luck to you out there growing your forest, and we will talk to you again. Thank you also very much for being with us.
Bye, everyone.
Good
Great
night.
job, Ellen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen.
Thanks for
Thank
having me.
you.
Nice to talk with you all.
Thanks
Good
for being
night.
Good night.